They laughed at his homemade scope. At 5:47 on the morning of June 14, 1944, Private First Class Robert Bobby Mercer crouched in a shattered church bell tower 400 yards behind German lines in Normandy, peering through a rifle scope he'd built from salvaged binocular lenses and scrap metal. 24 years old. West Virginia coal miner. 0 confirmed kills. The Germans had 19 MG-42 machine gun nests dug into the hedgerows around St. Lo, and in the past 48 hours they had killed 73 men from the 29th Infantry Division. Mercer's platoon sergeant had called his scope a hillbilly telescope. The company armorer had refused to mount it on a military rifle. His fellow soldiers called it Mercer's junkyard special. When he'd assembled the scope at the staging area in England 2 weeks before D-Day, the battalion weapons officer wanted to know if he was planning to hunt squirrels or fight Germans. Mercer explained it was for machine gunners. The officer told him to throw the homemade garbage away and use standard-issue iron sights like everyone else. Mercer kept it anyway. The Germans had fortified the hedgerows with interlocking fields of fire. MG-40, 2 Zeiss, positioned in stone farmhouses dug into earthen berms hidden in haylofts. When American infantry attacked, they walked into a killing zone where 7 or 8 machine guns could concentrate fire from multiple angles simultaneously. Standard tactics weren't working. Artillery strikes missed the camouflaged positions. Infantry assaults resulted in 40% casualties before units even reached German lines. But Mercer had done something the Army hadn't authorized. Using lenses from a shattered Zeiss binocular, welding rod from a Navy CB repair kit, and wire from a crashed Waco glider, he'd built a 6-power magnification scope that could identify machine gun positions at ranges where the gunners thought they were invisible. The optics were crude. The crosshairs were scratched into glass with a diamond ring. The mounting system was 3 hose clamps and wire, but at 400 yards Mercer could see muzzle flashes, helmet silhouettes, and the telltale smoke signature of an MG-42. What happened in the hedgerows around St. Lo over the next 6 days would prove that sometimes the best military equipment isn't built in factories. By June 13th, Mercer's company had lost 89 men, 73 of them to machine gun fire. Officers kept ordering frontal assaults because that's what doctrine required. Men kept dying because doctrine assumed you could see what you were shooting at. Mercer had been thinking about optics since England. In the coal mines you worked in darkness with carbide lamps. The guy who could see farthest stayed alive longest. Vision meant survival. Before shipping to England, Mercer had tried to requisition a sniper rifle. Request denied. Standard issue M1 Garands for everyone. Iron sights only, but without magnification, you couldn't counter German machine guns effectively. In England, Mercer collected materials: a Zeiss binocular from a crashed Ju-88 bomber, welding rod from a CB, wire from a crashed glider, a diamond ring from a German prisoner. He worked on the scope at night, removed 1 binocular lens assembly, created a tube from welding rod, scratched crosshairs into glass using the diamond, mounted everything with radiator hose clamps. It looked like junkyard scrap, because it was. The battalion weapons officer saw the scope and ordered Mercer to remove it. Unauthorized modification. Violation of regulations. Mercer removed it in front of the officer. Reinstalled it that night. June 14, 1944. Dawn. The 29th Infantry prepared to assault German positions around St. Lo. Intelligence reported heavy machine gun concentrations. Expected casualties 35 to 40%. At 5:30, Mercer's platoon moved into position. They were supposed to cross 300 yards of open farmland. German MG-42 Zeiss covered that field from multiple angles. Previous attacks had failed 3 times. Each attempt cost 20 deaths, 30 men. Mercer looked through his scope, saw muzzle flash signatures, counted positions. 7 distinct firing points. All mutually supporting. The assault would fail again. He told his platoon sergeant he could eliminate the MG positions before the assault. The sergeant looked at the hillbilly telescope and laughed. Then he looked at the field where 60 men had already died. He gave Mercer 30 minutes. Mercer moved to an abandoned church bell tower 400 yards from the German positions, climbed the remaining stairs, set up at a window opening, rested his M1 Garand on broken masonry. Through the scope he could see what iron sights couldn't. A helmet edge in a hayloft window 380 yards away. Smoke residue indicating a firing position. the distinctive barrel profile of an MG-42. At 5:47, Mercer aimed at the first position, a machine gun nest in a stone barn's second floor. He could see the gunner's helmet through a gap in the masonry. Mercer controlled his breathing. Exhale halfway. Hold, squeeze. The M1 Garand kicked. The German gunner jerked and fell backward. 30 seconds later, movement at the barn window. Second gunner moving into position. Mercer fired. The second gunner fell. The MG-42 was silent. Mercer shifted to the second position. A gun nest dug into a hedgerow 340 yards away. He waited for movement. A German soldier adjusting the gun. Mercer fired. The soldier dropped. Return fire immediately. Germans had spotted his muzzle flash. Rifle rounds struck the church tower. Mercer dropped below the window. Counted to 30, rose again. Third position. Hidden in a haystack, 420 yards out. The hay was shifting. Mercer aimed at the movement. Fired twice. The shifting stopped. 4 machine gun positions neutralized in 6 minutes. At 5:55, his platoon sergeant radioed, 5 minutes until assault. Status, Mercer reported 4 MG positions destroyed, 3 remaining. The sergeant said, continue. Mercer loaded a fresh clip, scanned for the 5th position, found it in a stone wall gap 390 yards away. The muzzle flash gave away the position. Mercer fired. The gun went silent. Position 6. A farmhouse window 360 yards out. Mercer saw the barrel, waited for movement. Fired. Glass shattered. Position 7. Dug into the base of a hedgerow, nearly invisible. Mercer spotted the ammunition belt in the grass. He fired 3 rounds, no movement after. At 6 o'clock hours the assault began. American infantry crossed the field. No machine gun fire. The assault succeeded with 8 casualties instead of the expected 35. The platoon sergeant found Mercer in the church tower, asked how many guns he'd killed. Mercer said 7 positions. The sergeant said the hillbilly telescope just saved 30 American lives. Word spread through the battalion by noon. Officers who had mocked the junkyard optics now wanted to know how he'd done it. Battalion command summoned Mercer. A captain asked 3 questions. Could he repeat the performance? Could he teach others? Could he build more scopes? Mercer said yes to all 3. But he needed materials. June 15th. Mercer operated again with official authorization. His target was a fortified German position holding up the entire divisional advance. 4 MG-42 nests in mutually supporting positions. Mercer eliminated all 4 in 23 minutes. The advance resumed. Casualties 12 instead of projected 40. That evening a supply sergeant arrived with materials. 6 pairs of damaged binoculars, welding equipment, mounting hardware. Mercer spent the night building scopes. By dawn he had 3 functional optics. Crude, ugly, but they worked. June 16th. Mercer trained 3 other soldiers. He taught them how to identify positions by muzzle flash, how to time shots between German fire bursts, how to relocate after every shot. By June 17th, 4 soldiers with homemade scopes were operating across the 29th Infantry's front. German machine gun effectiveness dropped measurably. The Germans adapted. They stopped firing long bursts, shortened exposure times. But adaptation meant reduced effectiveness. Machine guns that fired less often killed fewer Americans. June 18th, Mercer eliminated 3 more MG-42 positions. His total 14 nests destroyed. June 19th, 5 more positions. Total 19. 6 days. 19 German machine gun nests neutralized. The unofficial estimate was that Mercer's innovation saved between 150 and 200 American lives. On June 20th, Mercer engaged a machine gun position at 450 yards, extreme range for his setup. He fired. Missed. The German gunner returned fire with the MG-42. 40 rounds impacted Mercer's position in 3 seconds. 1 round hit his left arm. The bullet shattered his humerus. Medics evacuated Mercer to a field hospital. Doctors said the arm would heal but needed months of recovery. No combat operations. Mercer's war was over. But his innovation continued. By late June, the 29th Infantry had 12 soldiers operating with homemade scopes. Other divisions started building their own. In July, the Army's Ordnance Department sent engineers to Normandy to study the improvised optics. They interviewed Mercer, examined his scope, tested the concept. Their conclusion: the principle was sound, but the execution needed improvement. Factory-built optics, standardized mounting. The Army issued a contract to a scope manufacturer in September 1944. By December, production scopes were reaching frontline units. The M1C and M1D sniper variants of the Garand, factory optics, professional mounting systems. But the core concept was Mercer's precision counterfire against machine guns at extended range. The innovation changed infantry tactics. Before Mercer, suppressing machine guns meant volume fire and frontal assault. After Mercer, it meant precision elimination from standoff range. The doctrine shift saved thousands of lives in the final year of the war. Mercer returned to the United States in August 1944. The Army promoted him to sergeant and assigned him to training duties at Fort Benning. He taught marksmanship and field optics improvisation. The homemade scope was sent to Aberdeen Proving Ground for analysis. Engineers studied the design, noted the simplicity, commented on the effectiveness despite crude construction. In 1975, a military historian researching Normandy innovations found the scope in Army Museum storage. He tracked down Mercer living in West Virginia, working in a hardware store. The historian interviewed Mercer about the scope and the 19 machine gun nests. Mercer downplayed his role. He said the scope was just basic optics. Any coal miner who'd worked in the dark could have built it. The machine gunners were just men doing their jobs. He'd done his. The historian published a paper in 1977, Field Innovations in the Normandy Campaign. The Mercer Optic. The paper documented how a West Virginia coal miner with salvaged materials had developed a counter-MG technique that influenced Army doctrine for decades. Robert Mercer died in 1998, at age 78. His obituary mentioned his service in the 29th Infantry Division and his Silver Star. It did not mention the homemade scope or the 19 machine gun nests. His family donated his medals to a local VFW post, but the principle lived on. Modern military optics trace their lineage to that crude assembly of salvaged lenses and welding rod. The doctrine of precision counterfire against machine guns is standard training. The idea that a soldier with improvised equipment and clear thinking can change tactics is embedded in Army culture. Mercer's scope cost nothing. Salvaged binoculars, scrap metal, broken glass. It looked like junk. Officers laughed at it. Regulations forbade it. But it worked. And in 6 days it eliminated 19 German machine gun positions that had been killing Americans with impunity. That's the story of how a homemade scope built from junkyard parts changed infantry tactics in World War II. Sometimes genius doesn't wear a uniform. Sometimes it wears coal dust and speaks with a West Virginia accent. And sometimes the best weapon is the one a soldier builds himself when the Army says it's impossible. If this story moved you the way it moved us, hit that like button. Every like tells YouTube to show this story to more people who need to hear it. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from history's archives every single day. Drop a comment right now. Tell us where you're watching from. And tell us, should Mercer have been court-martialed for unauthorized equipment modifications, or was he right to improvise when regulations were getting men killed? Thank you for watching. Thank you for making sure Robert Mercer and the 200 soldiers his innovation saved don't disappear into silence. These stories deserve to be remembered. You're helping make that happen.